Established in April 2021, Upland Development United is the oldest and most exclusive and transparent no development collaborative in the Upland Metaverse. Contact Morecheese at 68 for more information. Warning! This podcast is produced by Metaverse Ventures Entertainment and contains unsolicited and heavily biased opinions which are solely the views of the individuals involved. It does not include investment advice of any kind, and you are responsible for undertaking your own financial, including tax liability research relevant to your own individual circumstances.
All right, this week we're going to do a little mini spotlight on racing and what's been set up to kick off within Midtown Terrace. Now, we did see, which was quite good timing, that Upland had set up, what was it, a flash challenge?
Yes.
Where is it?
Yes, you actually told me about this. I mentioned it and you were like, oh yeah, I posted something in there.
Yeah.
Well, so you have to post your racetrack. I
didn't go back to bed after the stress test, so I just did this instead. So yeah, Light It Up Dan has posted in the announcements channel that custom racetrack flash challenge. So you had to make a custom racetrack for Upland. It could be a picture from a movie, a video game, something you've created on Paint, Photoshop. So long as it works as a racetrack, you had to include the tag racetrack in your post, and they're going to pick 5 winners to receive 10,000 UPEX, 1 entry per player. Submissions are open now and closed Wednesday, 4 a.m. PT. So yeah, I went ahead and did that straight away because I already had that sorted out, because if you haven't heard or you're not aware, there are some people within the community who just grabbed the ball and just totally ran with it. I don't know if Dak, are you still on? Are you able to give us a quick synopsis of what's going down?
I'm still on. Just don't have camera going.
That's all good. So can you give us a quick overview of how the Upland Racing League all kicked off, if possible, please?
Sure. We put together a community that allows individuals interested in racing to come together. We did it way ahead of any announcements. When Jeremy came in, Jeremy being the head of product for racing in Upland, and gave a lot of information. We went from being like 30 people to being like 400 people. And that forced us to really start to kind of buckle down on how track submission was going to work, how team management is going to work. And a lot of this is all based more on the operational models versus the technology and mechanics of racing and race management in Upland, as we don't really have too much information on how all of that works. So we went more with kind of like the business operations model and used that to kind of start to identify. We put together some track regulations. The track regulations were conceived first by the ranking board. There's a ranking board made of community members. And then the draft went to the race commissioners, which are all of the folks who have already submitted and are part of the Upland Racing League URL. They then ratified, after tweaks and changes were made, they ratified the regulations. And then we've actually been adjusting the regulations as people ask questions, as clarifications are requested. And so it is a living document that will be changed as we get either more information from the community itself, or if Upland provides more information, as Upland provides more information about how racing is going to work, how track submissions for player-created track submissions are going to work, and so forth, we will go ahead and modify the regulations to include all those things. In terms of what we did now, really part of it was, do you have a solid track? Is it a certain amount of length? Do you have kind of a business plan for supporting that track? It could be whether it's a node or a private group. The idea is that the track will need support financially, from being able to set up prize purses for drivers to kind of creating other types of environments and activities. You had Elijah on before, and he was talking about the Real Node LA. And, you saw all of the different things he's pointing out. I mean, he has a whole big kind of element. Radish did a really nice video kind of going through the different tracks and talking and kind of doing some editorials around some of the tracks we've already listed, which I thought was kind of cool. And little by little, we're seeing more and more folks kind of getting into it and understanding that creating a track for a league and for a true racing operation is not just about drawing something on a map. It's really a lot of the foundational elements, just like a node. You don't just say, hey, we put together a neighborhood project and now we have a node kind of thing, right? There's more to it. And there's a lot of moving parts that need to kind of come together. Most of it is really going to necessitate a group of individuals, because you will probably need to do marketing, you will need to do governance, you will need to do maintenance and so forth. And so it is actually a lot of work, and the amount of individuals that are interested in doing that much work actually has been pretty impressive. I know you have 3 tracks now, Ben, in there, and I think we're up to like 36 tracks. Someone asked, you know, is there going to be a limit to the number of tracks? Eventually.
Yeah, I was just looking through. I'm sharing the Discord now. We have all these tracks under the city names. Are all of these the ones that have, you know, they've fulfilled all the sanctioning details?
Right, they're sanctioned or provisional. In other words, that they've gone through the submission process. Now, some of them are grandfathered because they were like, you know, they came in really early and engaged and were part of like setting up the, like JR Wheels. He's met the criteria, but, you know, he was grandfathered, right? French Road was set to go. Elijah with Ithaca Run, they were set to go kind of thing. But we are starting to kind of, even the ones that had been submitted, there is going to be a constant review of tracks, and tracks will have different statuses. So the ones that will be used for racing will be sanctioned. The ones that are going to be used for like invitationals or neighborhood races and so forth that are still going to be listed in the URL calendar of events, they are going to be provisionals. And so there are different statuses of how tracks can be managed, maintained, and different types of engagement those tracks will have within the URL.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's kind of 2 systems at play here. There are racetracks that are going to be part of the Upland Racing League, and there's also race teams. Can you speak to the difference between those 2 concepts?
So the racetracks are more of the venues. So if you think of the venue and sort of the corporations or the owners that have venues and maintain the venues. The race teams are the, think of a good analogy is NFL, right? So we have the whole NFLPA legits thing. We have the stadiums, and those are the venues. And then you have the NFL teams, and those are the players, right? And so kind of the same concept. We have the driving teams. In F1, you have Ferrari, you have Red Bull and Toro Rosso and all that, right? And so it's the same kind of concept. We wanted to make sure we had teams that we knew are going to be racing, and these teams are going to be creating some of the most competitive drivers in Upland, only because they're going to be so focused on racing. If people have teams and they're going to create that level of competition, we are welcoming different teams now.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Like I've set up a lot of racing stuff to do with Midtown Terrace, you know, as my node, but I kind of looked into, and we discussed this internally in the UDU, are we going to set up an official UDU race team? I was very wary of starting that myself because of, you know, you can't underestimate the time required to do something like that, you know, really well. So I kind of, although we will run official, you know, races and whatnot in Midtown Terrace myself as a driver, I'm pretty much a free agent, although I did sign on with the Citadel Elite Racing team.
Yeah.
See how we go there.
No free agency. You're locked in now.
Locked in, yes. I did sign the contract, yes. So you're right. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, we will be running UDU events, but not operating an official race team at this stage. So should be fun.
And part of it is that the track itself is costly, and then a team is costly. And so if you start to try to manage both, you need to be an enterprise, a large enterprise to manage both and to manage both well.
Yeah.
And so I think that what's going to happen is people are going to start getting into it. They're going to see the level of effort and the cost associated with everything. And they'll probably start to kind of focus on a particular area.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it was just a time-based thing. I was never going to have enough time to devote to what it needed. So what I've got up here is showing the 3 kind of tracks that we got set up for Midtown Terrace. So, of course, the Genesis node, Midtown Terrace, San Francisco, we have the big one's going to be the MTU 100, Midtown Terrace United 100. So that's around this track that you can see here, which, you know, it's quite an extensive track. It's gonna require a lot of skill, and you know, we still don't know how all the systems going to play out as far as, you know, the actual mechanics of it, but it's going to be interesting and fun to play with. So we've got the Midtown Terrace. That's the main track here. We've got the Skyview International Speedway. That's the drag strip that goes up Skyview Way. And then also I added this one. I played around with this the other night, the Delbrook short track. So that's over on the left. It's kind of a little mini circuit there. So that should be a lot of fun, I think, to play around there. But yeah, as far as the big main event, like, I don't know, are you envisioning that the Upland Racing League is going to set up like a number of different series, I'd imagine? And would this be like a Formula One situation where it's a set schedule per year, or how do you see that playing out?
So once we understand, and we've talked about this in the ranking board, we can't really lay out a schedule yet because we don't understand what the mechanic is going to be for actual racing. So an example of what I mean by that, if all you can do is 1v1, right, head-to-head racing, then the drag strips will be able to go first, kind of thing, right? And so they'll probably get their schedule sooner than anyone else. If you start to have, you know, where you can't race more than 4 players or something like that, well, then we might have to start doing round robin types of qualifiers and so forth for the final big race kind of thing, which means that instead of doing a race in 30 minutes, it might take 3 days to do one race. Yep. And so that impacts the scheduling. So we are waiting to hear a little bit more about how racing is going to work. When are we going to be able to create our own races and so forth before we actually announce any season? We will start with a beta season so that we can get any kinks and work out all the bugs. But our goal is to have a defined season, and we do have 3 tiers for 3 different types of tracks. So we will have an amateur, a pro, and a Champions Cup, and then we'll have drag, sprint, and laps.
Yep. Yeah, and it's important to note that, as you said, nobody knows how it's all going to play out. But it's one of those things where the URL team's not sitting back and waiting for that information to be finalized. You know, we're all doing everything that we can to front load it, and then once we get information, we'll just pivot from there. It'll be about making adjustments rather than hopefully setting up entirely new situations and whatnot.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's Midtown Terrace. Now, that's just the overview of the track itself for the MTU 100. Last night, I sat down and trying to work out, because there is, as far as ratifying the track to become officially associated with the URL, there are some requirements as far as property ownership and development. So I tried to sit down and work that out, but I think I got in the 400s or something, how many properties are along the actual track, but I kept losing count. So I don't know, I'll get there eventually.
It's probably one of the hardest parts of submitting a track to URL is demonstrating the ownership and development of the track. And we put that in there because it does kind of force the sense of engagement and putting skin in the game versus just kind of throwing the track out there. Yeah. But I have had someone who you guys know, who knows a little bit about maps, reach out to me.
Nice.
And there might be a partnership in development at some point.
Does his name rhyme with Steve? I mean, I fucked that up.
Jesus, Ben!
I'm not calling anyone out.
Oops.
No, but There is, there is definitely opportunities for community engagement and support, and there are some folks out there that really know what they're doing and have tools that we might be able to take advantage of.
Cool. Yeah, and the Midtown track, of course, it's by far the most developed neighborhood in San Francisco, so there's no problems there. There's a big section in the middle that's getting developed at the moment. There's another big gap, one of these long fingers here that I'm currently working with the UCC to build now. Delbrook Ave, that's going to be similar to how we've built the MTU signs in the roofs there. To the left of that's going to be a UDU sign as well. So that'll be all developed. This big section in the top right, that will not be developed because that's being held for the outdoor decor shop. So again, it's one of those things where we're not sure how much property is going to be required there. There will be this big property here. There's going to be a manufacturing plant put on that. And then the rest we're going to have to play by ear. If it turns out that we don't need so much space there, then I may develop these other ones. But again, there's also aspects, maybe you can speak to that as well, as far as, having to park cars or transport trucks and pits for races. There's a whole aspect of that as well that's kind of up in the air. Can you speak to that at all, Dak? Maybe not. All right. So
I'm sorry, say that again.
So, I have a very large section in the top right of Midtown Terrace that is undeveloped. Part of that's for my outdoor decor shop, but I'm not sure how much I'm going to use. But then I don't want to fill that up with townhouses either, because I'm not sure how much property we're going to need or space for, parking cars, pits, parking transport trucks, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and there's actually been a lot of questions about that. So, for example, the idea of pit row, right? And do you set up a house or a garage in pit row, and then that garage support the spark and everything else they need for, fueling up or modifications or whatever it is to get out there and go, right? The other thing too that we don't know is what the UP2 ratio is for storage.
Yes.
And when I asked Jeremy about it, he didn't have that information for me yet. So I think that's still up in the air. And so we've seen people go through two different extremes. At the Dell Run in Citadel, SA has a 4,000 UP2 property that we've set aside as kind of the pit row storage garage, transportation parking space, right? Where all the trucks are going to go, kind of thing. We don't know if that's going to be the way it works or not. Other people have set up where they have a lot of 25 properties lined up that they would park a car into, kind of thing, right? But I don't know if you need a certain amount of UP2 space for a truck transport, for example, versus just a car. So there's still a lot of questions about the mechanics of storage and the logistics of transportation.
Absolutely. And it's going to be we know that the treasure hunt system's probably going to be updated at some stage as well to incorporate cars and whatnot. If we have a race going on in Midtown Terrace, for example, and there's cars zooming about the track and there's trucks and, support vehicles and all sorts of stuff parked up here, there and everywhere, how's that going to impact on treasure hunts if there's a treasure that spawns right in the middle of it all? It's going to be quite interesting to see how it all plays out.
I don't think the assets will have an impact on treasure hunting, and the race itself is going to be on the Unity platform. So it's going to be isolated server instance.
Yep.
And so that should not impact. It actually was one of the questions that I saw in another place is, will you be able to kind of do a flyby and watch the race happening? And, my response on Twitter was, I don't think so, and I hope not. And part of the reason is because of this whole Unity platform and the performance engagement and all that. And then the other part of it is because of it, you also then actually end up creating a whole lot of mechanics around spectators and forcing people to go to properties on the track to do spectator economics, right? Creating a fan zone and creating merchandise for the race that you watched and going to someone's home to purchase and having a meta venture on the track, for example, right? Or something like that. So for that reason, because of the technology that's being used and then just the performance on the server, and I don't think it will happen. And just because of the economic models that you can create with forcing spectators to go to location, I think that I'm hoping not.
So we'll have to wait and see. It was lucky, and thanks for being on so we could get all those extra insights. That's really cool. At the north end of, like, where the northern end of the MTU 100 track is, that's right on the border between Midtown Terrace and Clarendon Heights. There's a whole bunch of undeveloped properties all along there. So if you're in Clarendon Heights, you got some pretty prime real estate there. You might want to think about developing it. Yeah, and to the south, we have Diamond Heights, and Diamond Heights is already well developed, so we don't need to worry about there. It was a little bit of a shame that we couldn't use the far right hand side of Midtown Terrace, which is the residential area, which is probably the most built out area, but there was just no way to have there's only one way in, so we couldn't have a circuit track, which is what I'm most interested in. So who knows, we might come up with something for that at some stage. And just in wrapping up, this is the Upland Racing League logo I believe that was done by the Metaverse, Buck. So if you're interested in anything to do with cars and racing, do yourself a favor and get on over to the Upland Racing League Discord server. I'll put an invite link in the description. So yeah, go and check that out. So other than that,
thank you.
Dak is here. Does anybody have any questions in chat or anything for Dak about what's going down? Awesome has said the big track should have a shop with souvenir cup NFTs for spectators. Yeah, depends how micro you want to go. I know there's people been talking about, maybe outdoor grandstands are going to be some kind of decor piece, and then you have the option to rent out a spot in the grandstand, and I don't know, it's one of those things where you could go crazy micro on it, but I'm pretty sure that the minimum viable product we're going to kick off with is going to be pretty basic. So we shall wait.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have any real spectator functionality or anything like that in the beginning. And we know it's first just individual racing, and then it might be 1v1 or 1v AI.
Yep.
Right.
Well, it's true that at least from the start, there's no skill involved, right? It's just all AI and RNG based and stats based.
Correct. Yeah. Which actually is part of why I created URLs, because of that, you do actually have a good economic model for the market that supports it, from the BEs to the NFTs to the shops that support all of the different mechanic elements. Yep. So it's I know many people are disappointed that it doesn't use skill-based driving, because there's a lot of racing video game fans out there. But from a economic model, which is what Upland really tries to be more like, it actually works really well for the community in that regard.
Yeah, I didn't really like the idea either, but something you said just before made me think, hang on a minute, that's a good angle too. Like, if, say, the Midtown Terrace 100, say we want to expand that to something like the Panorama Bathurst 1000, which is really popular race. Maybe we want to do the MTU 1000. Well, yeah, maybe you could set it all up and you let it run for 3-4 days or whatever it is, we get the green flag, and then I go off to work and check on it every now and then and see what's happening. So that could be a cool aspect as well.
Yeah, and we have so many different ideas. There's going to be streaming of races. There's going to be conversations with team owners, drivers. We've created the season on purpose so that drivers and team owners will be able to do kind of off-season drafting, free agency, so that drivers who really have invested in their BEs and their NFTs can try to get top dollar for their involvement in racing, so that individuals can benefit as much as the team principals or the track owners, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The RNG damage element, that kind of scares me a bit because I just have horrendous luck for RNG games. So I don't know. It's a bit scary. I know I'll be trying to level up 2 of my block explorers. Of course, my samurai head, that'll be my main one that I'll run in circuit tracks like the MTU 100. I've also got a 1 of 4 zombie from the first Halloween one. I'll probably set that up as a kind of dragster guy. And then I'll have to get some other one. I have to have a look through my itinerary and see if I can pick one that'll work well for some of the shorter tracks, or, you know, maybe there's like this, what do you call it? Not the circuit races, the sprint ones or something.
The sprints?
Yeah.
So I had my 3, but now I just picked up one of those Genesis VEs.
I just saw that on Twitter. Yeah, speak about that.
First time ever, I was first in line. It was awesome. So I picked up the face one, not the machine, but the other one.
Yeah, it's very cool. And Goldsmith has just said in chat, you can enter your car, do nothing wrong, and roll a catastrophic failure. Absolutely. And that's the kind of risk you play with RNG. Yeah, can be tricky. But eventually it'll all be about, you know, stimulating the economy, because you're going to have to take it somewhere to be fixed, or, you know, who knows.
Exactly.
We might have,
but I know that's why a lot of people.
Of the week.
Oh, I'm just saying, and I know why a lot of people who are talking about winning the Genesis Tram, they're just going to park that sucker and never, they're going to leave it in the box.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you'd be crazy to race that. That's like a museum piece for sure. All right, now, did anybody catch the details? I only caught the tail end of it about these first release of cars at some kind of reverse blind auction or something. I quickly looked at the details and I went, oh, that sounds like a bloody horrible system. I won't be getting myself involved in that. Seems like
that was yesterday's stream with X1 and General Mort.
So it's just a Wales playground, basically. Pretty
much. I am not even going to try. You got to bring millions of UPEX to participate in that. And pretty much it's not a blind auction. They use the wrong term. It's an anonymous auction, just like eBay kind of thing.
You'll see the bids, but you don't know who they're coming from.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I won't be playing with that game.
Wow, that just like puts my conspiracy tinfoil hat at an all-time high. Seriously, like that transparency, what?
Yeah. Yeah, that's only going to be for a certain limited series or something, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's 21, and what they're doing is they're doing colors of different vehicles. And so I think they're doing, they only have 6 vehicle types, but they're doing 21. So I'm not sure where the extra one comes from or how they get to it. But they were doing, and so depending on the trim and the color, that will determine kind of like the mint number. And you're going to have different types of vehicles. I was talking to Abdullah, and I know he's going to participate, and I know what he's looking for. So he'll probably get what he wants.
I would imagine so, yes.